Cancelled.
Schweezy.
It's time. It's everyone's favorite time of the year. One of everyone's favorite segments. It's our Christmas movie review. We do movie reviews every year in the month of December for Christmas Schweezy. I like to review at least up to Christmas in December. The last week I talked about my favorite albums of the year. But we talk about my Christmas movies. I watch Christmas movies. I write detailed reviews about them. I go scene by scene for the most part, and I talk about all my favorite moments in all of these different Christmas movies. And I gotta say, for the most part, it's fun, but these Christmas reviews are a lot of work. That's why in this year we didn't see a lot of movie reviews. We've had probably one in Canto, but they take a lot of work. I'm telling you, they take a lot of work to get done. But regardless, though, I feel like Christmas will always do Christmas movie reviews. That's always going to be a staple on Christmas Schweezy. So let's get into it. This year, so the theme for the next 3 weeks in regards to our Christmas movie reviews are movies I've probably seen before, but honestly don't really remember very well, to be honest with you. Maybe I've only seen it once or twice, and maybe it was when I was a small kid when I saw this movie, and it's not really part of a rotation of movies that me and my family and friends like to, generally rewatch, every year for Christmas. So, for the most part, that's the theme this year. Last year was movies I had a specific memory for. The year before that, I think I did cartoons and It's a Wonderful Life. So this year it's movies I haven't really seen, and everyone's gonna be really surprised every week. I can't believe you haven't seen that movie. I can't believe you never watched that movie. I can't believe that's not part of your Christmas rotation. I'm sorry, I didn't get to choose that. It's just when you're a kid, your parents kind of choose it, and you kind of maybe get to choose it if you watched it and liked it. But for the most part, these are movies I haven't watched. So this year, I watched Home Alone. I probably watched Home Alone maybe once or twice, and I had to be a small child. I do believe I've actually seen this movie before, but I had to have been super, like a super small child when I saw this. So it had to be forever fucking ago when I saw it. I know my brother, he remember back in the day, if you're younger, if your birthday doesn't start with 19, if your birth year doesn't start with 19, you probably don't remember going to a movie store and renting a movie. They still do exist, and if you're like, I live in the middle of fucking nowhere, we have movie rentals, because Redbox doesn't go out that far. But you used to have to go to a store, you saw movies on a shelf, and you would pick it out there. My brother would pick out the third one, just randomly the third one, not the Macaulay Culkin ones, the good ones, the third one. So that was weird, but he's also a weird guy, and we talk about that on the show because he doesn't listen to this podcast, and it's okay. So it's okay. We can talk about him as much as we want. We can talk as much shit about my brother, and it'll be fine. No one's gonna give a shit about that. So, anyways, though, yeah. So, Home Alone, starring Macaulay Culkin, which I do want to say here. Macaulay Culkin, he's doing great right now. He's sober. He's doing great. But he used to be on a lot of drugs. And I think that he did the right amount of drugs. And you're like, the right amount of drugs? Is there a right amount? I'm like, yes, there is. If you had to interact with Michael Jackson, there is a specific amount of drugs you need to do to forget that man's existence. And I think Macaulay Culkin figured that out, and he did that many drugs. It cost him a lot of money, but he did the right amount. So, cheers to him. Cheers to everything he's doing these days. Anyways, though, Macaulay Culkin. So let's talk about Home Alone. First of all, the logo for Home Alone, it's Home Alone. Everything's capitalized except for the E at the end of it, which is lowercase. I could not figure that out. Maybe it's something cool with the logo, like the FedEx logo has like a little arrow in it, and then Amazon has a little arrow A to Z, but I could not find the actual, maybe there was a joke in there, maybe there was something cool in there. I could not find it, so therefore it doesn't count. That's how that works, right? If you can't find it, it doesn't count. So, anyways, though, let's get into Home Alone. Let's get into the movie. I want to start with the movie. I had to talk about the logo because that's just weird. Love Chris Columbus. He's the director. He directed the first 2 Harry Potter movies. But also, it would have been weird because like those 2 Harry Potter movies look like BBC, like cheap BBC specials, too. But they're also great. I can't talk bad about it because Chamber of Secrets is probably my favorite Harry Potter movie. There's a reason for that, which we'll get into another day. So we're first introduced to this giant ass house. Like this house is humongous. I think they have like 5 or 6, 7 kids maybe, but they also have like their cousins in the house. I think there's 11 kids in total, which too many fucking. That's 2 families worth of kids. Like. It's very rare. I feel like we all know the family, but it's very rare you find like the family that has a lot of kids, but also financially is doing really well, which is insane to find that. So, the giant ass house. You're introduced to that. You're first introduced to Kevin and his mother, Moira Rose, from Schitt's Creek. And that's how I'll be referring to her because I like her more in that movie than I did. I like her more in that show than I do in this current movie. We're just being honest here. So, we're to them. Giant fucking ass house. I don't know what that family does, but they apparently do good enough where it's like, yeah, we can have another kid. Fuck it. We can have another kid. Anyways, though, Kevin, can we talk about Macaulay Culkin's? He plays an 8-year-old. We figured that out in the movie. He plays an 8-year-old, and he has a phenomenal, like, vocabulary. Like, this kid talks like a teenager. Like, not like a teenager, like the teenager's, like, saying shitty things about you, but like has like the skill level of a teenager, and that's probably why Macaulay Culkin was good. One, he's like a perfect, great actor from like 8 years old. Like I bet he could still kill it today, But like a lot of adults can kill it today, but not a lot of 8-year-olds could kill like Macaulay Culkin could. Like for real, like that kid, like he could. Macaulay Culkin could probably do some like who's the guy who directed The Dark Knight. Chris Nolan. He could probably do some Chris Nolan roles and like just kill it. Anyways, though, so yeah, we're left alone, and you get the vibe at the beginning of this movie that no one likes Kevin, and it's not. And you're like, oh, is Kevin an asshole? No, I don't think it's because Kevin's an asshole. I think it's because this house they live in is chaos, even without his brother's kids, without their family's other kids in there. But this family is terrible. We're gonna get into that a little bit more. I'll get into it a little more. I'll keep complaining about shit. So like Kevin, he's an 8-year-old, and like to be honest with you, he's like a really good 8-year-old. To be honest with you, you're like everyone's like Kevin, you're so annoying. He walks into his mom's room and just sits on the bed and like, hey mom, how's it going? Like Kevin, shut the fuck up, Kevin, shut the fuck up, get out of my fucking room, Kevin. I mean, they didn't use the F word. It's a kids movie. Anyways, though, they order pizza, and they order 12 pizzas. Now, Kevin's a picky eater, and I'm very good. I'm figuring out.
What?
I haven't used much of the soundboard. I have to keep using it. I'm planning our Christmas meal this year for Christmas. I'm smoking pulled pork, and I think there's pulled pork, but you can also make pulled pork nachos, and so someone just wants like cheese and chips for the kids, And then I also like in my mind like a signature holiday meal for me, I have to include pizza rolls. I don't know why, but like that way, when the kids are there, the kids will like it. The adults will eat pizza rolls. Like you're not. No one's too good for pizza rolls. And then we got pulled pork and nachos and like it's cheese and chips. Like kids will eat that. I always want to make sure everyone's kind of covered for the most part. It's just me though. A lot of people were like, yeah, I made like just fucking onions for everyone. Like fuck you. So there's one cheese pizza out of the 12 cheese pizzas they ordered. Fucking Kevin's brother Buzz. And now we have to get into Buzz. Buzz is destined for prison. You remember the kid you went to school with? And he's just always in trouble, always just fucking starting shit. And you're like, why don't, like, from normal people, like, it's hard for us to go to, like, to even, like, do anything that requires prison sentence. Like, you have to, like, first of all, like, if you don't steal things, and you're not murdering people, and you're not, like, assaulting people, and have it's pretty hard to go to prison. I mean, I'm white, and I grew up around a lot of white people. There were black people around, but I tried to treat them like white people. Some other people did not, but I always treated them like white people, for the most part. And then Buzz is Kevin's brother, destined for prison. He is destined to be going to prison. So basically, what Buzz does, he eats the entire cheese pizza. They got one cheese pizza because that's Kevin's favorite. Kevin just likes a solid cheese pizza. That's all he wants. They ordered 12 pizzas. They ordered one cheese pizza just for Kevin. And Buzz, who is destined for prison, Kevin's older brother, destined for prison. I just want to bring that up. He ate the whole thing. He's like, if you're gonna eat a cheese pizza, you're gonna eat it from me vomiting it. And then Kevin gets mad and fights Buzz. But all of a sudden, Moira Rose comes in and like, Kevin, you're being dramatic. You're starting you're causing all our family's problems. And I'm like, Kevin's not doing shit. He got mad because his brother was being an asshole to him. Buzz clearly was the asshole. Buzz should have won the trouble. Normal parents would have been like, Kevin, why did you attack your brother, Buzz? And his name is Buzz, and he's also destined for prison. Kevin would have been like, he ate the entire cheese pizza, and that's all I like, and normal parents were like, Buzz, why would you be mean to your brother like that on purpose? That's what normal people would do. Not these parents. They're like, they lock Kevin in the attic because you're like, you know what, Kevin, it's a giant ass house. I've always wanted a house kind of like that. It has a basement, a first level, a second level, and an attic you can actually do shit in. It's always an older house. I love that shit. So in that moment, Kevin wishes to Moira Rose that his family would just disappear and go away, and stuff like that. So this is the night before they go to Paris, France. Now how this family is able to afford to go to France with a giant ass house, 7, at least more than 5 kids, is beyond me. Because I feel like if I had a giant ass house and 7 kids, we would be vacationing at our giant house with my 7+ kids. But anyways, though, a tree falls down on the power line, and so their power goes out, and I guess it comes back on at one point and later in the night. But back then, so now if the power goes out in the middle of the night and then you wake up or whatever, and you have your alarm clock on your phone, what happens is your phone alarm clock will be fine, But back in the day, kids whose birth year starts with 20, basically if that happened, you're late to work the next day. You're late to whatever you're supposed to do the next day, unless you have the internal clock that wakes you up at the same time every day. I don't have that. I'm not a psychopath, so I do not have that. Some of you do, so basically they get up we're late to the airport, and so they're all rushing to get to the airport and stuff like that, and everyone's up waiting. But Kevin's the only one in the attic, and no one remembered to wake up Kevin. And so, and this is a time before 9/11. It came out in 1990, so and they maybe filmed it in 1988, 1989. Knowing how films work, I can't imagine it was earlier than more than that. But basically, yeah. So they basically get enough time. They're oh no, our flight leaves in 45 minutes. Will you make it? And I'm like, now look, I'm used to flying on planes today, and I'm in the 2-hour rule, and I'm gonna be honest, I usually get through everything in and out, by the time I get done, 30 minutes to an hour. That's how long it really takes me to get through that. I just like the time, I can sit down. I don't like being rushed. I'm not the kind of guy who likes being rushed, so I do enjoy that hour. I'm just sit down at the airport, just sit on my phone, listen to music. You know what? It's good because I could die on the plane, and so that. 45 minutes will take. I feel oh, you made it just in time. I'm oh yeah, this was before 9/11 and stuff like that. And yeah, I say I like the 2-hour rule, and it takes me 30 minutes to an hour to even really get through. But you still want a little bit of time before the actual plane takes off. Ideally, I feel in an ideal situation, you basically have all your TSA and shit all checked. And then you're 15 minutes, the flight takes off. That would be the perfect situation, but not everyone's built different like me or anything. But yeah, so they do make it in time, but when they were counting, because they had a head count, they had to do a head count on the kids. Some fucking annoying ass kid neighbor decides to walk over. Oh, you're driving to the airport? They're going to France. We're going to Florida. That's crazy. And this kid just would not shut up. And so when they were doing the head count of all the kids, they accidentally counted this kid for Kevin because they kind of love him. Okay. So it does make it an obvious mistake. Now, I would have enjoyed the movie if they just intentionally left Kevin behind. It was fuck Kevin. But, that's not how the movie works. They try to make, like, the family good. The family's not good, folks. The family is not a good family. Anyways, though, so they all make it to the airport, but they forgot Kevin because they accidentally counted the other kid as Kevin instead of, they just counted 11 kids and stuff like that. They didn't see him. So then Kevin is left home alone. Lowercase e. Remember the lowercase e. That's important. And stuff like that. So, yeah, they made it to the airport. You're like, no, it was before 9/11, so... if you make it to the airport, if you drive to the airport 45 minutes before the plane took off, before 9/11, you would have made it. And that's important. So, like, Kevin is now home alone. He wakes up and, he's like, oh, I guess everyone's gone. Woo! And so, like, he does literally what everyone has done when they're home alone, like, overnight for the first time. Like, he eats junk food and shit like that. And my favorite was... he went to Buzz's room because Buzz had a secret box with all his special stuff in it. Remember, this movie came out in 1990. So first goes through Buzz's stash of stuff. He immediately sees a Playboy. He looks through it and he's like, ugh. Like those where like naked people are gross. Because he's 8 years old. And 8-year-olds shouldn't be like, I want to jerk off right now. It was pretty funny, but Buzz looks like the guy who Buzz, like I said, he's destined for prison. He looks like the guy he jizzes on the magazine pages. You remember that guy who, like, someone's like, oh, a nudie magazine, you open it up, it's like all sticky, and like, ah! Like, fucking don't jerk off on the page. Like, leave it on your stomach and wipe it off like a real man. And then those bodies were probably like too perfect for him. He's like, I prefer the look of real women. And like real women do look better, and I do prefer. And I think most guys would also say this. I prefer like real looking women. Like like you look at porn, like oh perfect bodies, but you're like, and then you're like in real life though, like you kind of want something a little different. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, fellas? You know what I'm saying, fellas? Oh, and then he pulls out a picture of Buzz's girlfriend. And the only way I could describe Buzz's girlfriend is most women I've seen on the dating app Hinge. A fucking cow. That's also true, I'm sure. Oh, and then, yeah, Buzz has just a gun hanging on the wall. Just hanging on the wall. They live in Chicago, like the white people suburbs of Chicago. He has just a gun hanging on the wall. And, I know it's like a BB gun or a pellet gun, but... still weird. Also, another thing, like, yeah, every time they watch TV in this movie, it's in black and white for some reason. And I remember some of these movies are in black and white, but it was 1990. Color TVs existed. And I think these TVs were color. I don't know. Maybe it was just it's a director thing or whatever. But the surprising part of this movie I did realize was Moira Rose, her mom's senses start tingling. He's like, did I forget something at home? And they kind of just go through, like, the coffee pot. No, I turned that off. The garage door. No, we did close that. On the plane, she realizes Kevin is gone. That's how, and Myra questions how good of a mother she is. And if I was there, I'd be like, yeah, you're a pretty fucking terrible mom. I'm going to be honest with you, you're a pretty fucking terrible mom. And so then we go later. There's a lot of cuts. Cuts in this movie. It's just how movies work. Remember, and I didn't mention this, but there was a police officer at the beginning of the film, like, trying to tell people to, like, hey, be careful about robberies, and stuff like that. That police officer played by Joe Pesci, which I will be referring to him as Joe Pesci, because I just want to call him that. Turns out he was a thief all along, and he went to houses to see how they were guarding the place to try and rob them. So... that's how it's it. So it turns out, this isn't really a headline, but it's like, cop turns out to be bad guy. It's not real, that's not really news. That's just normal shit. So Kevin saw those two guys, like, they're getting ready to rob the house, and, like, he turned on the lights and stuff like that to scare him with, oh, is someone home? Shit, my bad. That's what they try to do. And so then Kevin's just like, oh, someone's trying to get me out from outside the house. And so, like, he's just up there hiding. Moira then calls the police, and it was kind of a struggle, but she eventually got a hold of them. They're like, hey, can you just do a wellness check? I think we left our son home alone, like the movie says. Like, it's lowercase e. Let's not forget that. And so, like, the police come over, try to do a wellness check. They're like, no one's home, because Kevin didn't answer the door. And people are like, why didn't Kevin answer the door? I'm like, look, here's just a solid fact. If you're not expecting someone over, you should never answer the door. I don't care if it's Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, or whatever. Just do not answer the door. You should not be answering the door when someone has not given you a heads up that they're coming over. That should be common sense. That's why so many people got fucking murdered in the 70s. It's because they were just like, oh, hello, how are you doing today, sir? Stab, 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 rape, rape, rape. That's what happened. That's what happened. And that's why so many people died in the 70s. Remember someone you know died in the 70s? It's because they fucking answered the door, probably. So don't do that. Kevin did a good thing. Yeah, you shouldn't be open, especially you shouldn't be opening the door. If I had a kid, I'd be like, do not ever open the door for anyone. Unless, like, yeah, I would just say that. In the meantime, I'd be like, I'll always answer the door. That's how I have kids. So Moira was like, you know what? You guys can stay here. I'm gonna go home and try to figure out a way to get home. And, you know, it's near Christmas, so flights are crazy right now. Oh, yeah, and then in an attempt to get, like a box full of money, he climbs, like 5 of Buzz's shelves, gets the money, breaks every single shelf, tarantula cage breaks, the tarantula gets loose, and so the tarantula's around the house now, and then so that Kevin has money, so he's going to buy a toothbrush, but there's like the creepy neighbor that Buzz was like, that guy murders people, and Kevin's like, oh, because he's 8, you know, and then basically when he was buying the toothbrush, he saw the guy and he ran out scared. He's still holding the toothbrush, so he stole the toothbrush, you know. Eventually Joe Pesci and Marv eventually find him and like, we're gonna follow you home, kid, just to see where you live, which is weird. And like Kevin was smart enough, like, don't let him know where I live, because Kevin's not trying to be weird or anything, and stuff like that. Even though like later on that night, like they drive by the McCallister house and he turns the light on, has all these cardboard and mannequins and stuff like that to give the illusion that they're home. Like, that's a lot of work to do, bro. That's like a lot of work he had to do, and he figured that shit out, man. Good for him. He then goes to like the grocery store and he buys like a week's worth of like just like, you know, general grocery shit and laundry detergent along with it. He buys Tide laundry detergent of all of them. Total comes out to $19.83. Like maybe a week's worth of food, like milk, orange juice. He even buys like army toys and shit like that too. $19.83. Man, I wish that. Like I used to be able to live off that, maybe like high school, college, but like now I could not. I could not make $19.83 buy me food for a week, including laundry detergent. That's insane. Like that dude, that's insane. Like the 90 star. So as Moira, Moira's like going back on her journey, trying to get back to, I guess, suburbs of Chicago. She ends up running into, like, I guess she's like every plane she cannot get on. She like did everything she could, but she's no longer on any flights. She runs into Uncle Buck, John Candy. I know some of you would probably know that. He apparently in this movie he's a polka star, and the entire band can't get a flight, so they rented out a vehicle to drop her off. Now, I thought they'd be renting out like a van, like what usual bands rent out, van. They probably didn't rent out a bus, but they probably rented out like a van. You know, they can get everything in there, and the whole band can fit with Moira Rose to get in there too. But anyways, though, yeah. But usually, no, like in my mind, like, oh, a woman's like stranded, but a band officer to ride. I'm like, that's a red flag. But this is a polka band, so I don't think a polka band's gonna like assault her. Country guys would. They're 100% gonna assault her. Rock guys, maybe, but probably with the rock guy, it'd be consensual. Pop punk guys, I know that's like, she's too old. Just letting you know, she's too old at that point. But overall, I guess I assume she'd be fine. And then like Kevin starts like decorating the house for Christmas. Now, you know, that's the craziest part about the McCallisters, not the deli. I'm just making sure you know it's not the deli. That they did not set up any Christmas decorations inside, but they did decorate the outside, which is psycho shit right there. That's just fucking crazy. But then, you know, I guess Kevin keeps hearing about these guys trying to rob the place, and he's like, doesn't know what to do. While Myra's still on, and oh yeah, no, here's what I want to get to. Instead of taking the van, they took a like a budget moving truck. That's what it's called. You know, the budget brand moving truck. Like you're like, oh, I'm moving today, and it's that kind of truck, not a van. But at least it's not hot as hell because it's Chicago in the winter and fat polka guys, they're probably not going to make it super cold. Okay, so anyways, though, Kevin makes it to a Catholic church, which is, like, scary to me here about an eight-year-old going to a Catholic church. He runs into the creepy neighbor guy he has, and he's like, yeah, all those rumors you heard about me are not true. Talks about his, like, estranged son. Kevin's like, you should not be afraid to call your son. It's Christmas time. And stuff like that. And he's like, okay. And Kevin's like, maybe I shouldn't be scared either. This is the same guy who saw Kevin steal a toothbrush, didn't bring anything up, didn't bring it up. They're at church. He should have returned it or something. I'm just saying that's what happens. And so Kevin gets the courage to not be scared after talking to this guy. So therefore, we have to talk about all the crazy ass fucking shit that Kevin did to Joe Pesci and Marv. I don't know Marv's real name, but it's Marv. So, like, I wrote down everything that Kevin did. Like, now, at this point, like, after, like, 2 of these, I'd be like, you know what, I'm out. But this guy was like, these guys were like, we're into it. We're in it to win it. So I need to take a drink real quick. Okay. So here's everything Kevin McCallister did to Joe Pesci and Marv in Home Alone. He shot Joe Pesci in the nuts with a BB gun and then shot Marv in the head. Could be like a pellet gun, but I think it was a BB gun. Like, he shot them in the head. Now, if I was shot in the nuts by a BB gun, I'm out. I would be out for the evening. That's how we know this is a movie. Then he iced the basement stairs because Marv and Joe Pesci... No, he iced the front stairs into the basement stairs. So when Marv and Joe Pesci would try to go up them, they would slip and fall, and they keep slipping and falling trying to get in. It's a little deteriorating factor there. But also, Kevin just left the basement door open or whatever. Like, he didn't lock it. And then Marv in the basement. Kevin jolly rigged the basement light switch. So basically, instead of turning on light, a hot iron fell on Marv's head. Like, Jesus Christ, he had that, like, outprint the rest of the movie. Like, Jesus Christ. And they still didn't give up. And then for the front door, they had some sort of heating device that may be a little too old for me, but he had on them, like, the metal door handle. So when Joe Pesci, like, held it, it just burned his hand. Lucky he was able to put it out in the snow. On the basement stairs, like, going up to, like, the main level, they had some, like, sticky tar type stuff on it. So Marv kept, like, he took off his shoes, then he took off his socks, then he put his bare feet on. And then the worst part is I cringed when he stepped on a fucking nail with his bare foot. Ugh. That just, like, just makes my spine shiver. Then he set up a makeshift flamethrower for Joe Pesci in the kitchen that burned what I think he had hair off and, like, the hat and skin. Jesus Christ. Then he used, like, sticky saran wrap on Joe Pesci and then feathers stuck to him. Like, he blew feathers on him, so, like, were like stuck to him and shit like that. Marv saw that the window was open, so he audibly stepped on broken ornaments, which is basically like stepping barefoot on glass. And then they were trying to go upstairs to get Kevin. They slipped on car toys, and then they were hitting the head with full paint cans. And then while Kevin was up there, that's when Kevin finally called 911 about the cops. That's like, he was like, they're not subdued yet. Let's call them cops. And then they tripped on, like, a line that Kevin set up. And then the tarantula that Kevin let out earlier comes out, and Kevin gently dropped it on Marv's face, and then he creeped out, got dropped off. That's when Kevin zip lines from, like, the upstairs window to the tree house. And then Marv hits Joe Pesci with a crowbar to try to kill the tarantula. Tarantula lives. I don't think the tarantula dies in this movie. Actually, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I just wrote my notes. Or doesn't. I wasn't paying attention. And then, like, you know, he ziplined from, like, the house to the tree house, and so they're like, we're going to climb it like this. Kevin cuts the rope, and then they George of the Jungle it, hit a brick fucking wall in the house. Oh, then Kevin leads them to another house that they robbed earlier and decided to flood, but they actually got Kevin. But the creepy neighbor guy, who we find out is a good guy, catches them and, you know, saves the day. very much a glad I called that guy scenario. So then the cops come, day is saved. But like, Jesus Christ. After, like, I'm looking at the list I made right now, and I'm just saying, like, I would have probably stopped. If I got shot in the nuts with a BB gun, I would have not robbed a house or not attempt to rob a house after my balls, which is where P is stored. P is stored in the balls, FYI. Got shot with a BB gun, that's for sure. Cops arrest them. And then Kevin's like, night accomplished. So he eats Christmas cookies with carrots. Very weird combo, but like it's good that kids are seeing a kid eat vegetables with his cookies, I guess. But then, the next morning, it's Christmas Day. Kevin wakes up, mom being dropped off with the polka guys in a truck. Kevin's like, Mom's here, and I guess I don't want to be alone after all. Christmas a little bit better. Kevin's happy. Maybe it was lonely, but like honestly though, like I don't get too lonely anymore because I have good friends who I can communicate with on the internet, and they're good friends, so like it's not that bad. And then the rest of the family shows up. She's like, "This is the flight you should have taken to be there on Christmas morning," but she wanted to try to get there earlier, and she ended up showing up at the same time. So I don't know, but anyways, the family's still terrible. But, but they all kind of like, Buzz is like, I'm glad you didn't burn the house down. I'm like, yeah, because your tarantula's in it with your porn magazine too, buddy. That's probably why you're happy. Here's the part that fucked me up. The creepy old guy who was talking about, like, creepy old guy neighbor. I don't know if we should be calling him the creepy old guy. But, like, he made amends with his son. So everything was happy. And I'm like, I don't know. So if you're new to the show, I'm like, my dad died earlier this year, and it's like it's not like something I'm like he died in a situation where it's like nothing I could have done would have like saved his life. So no one else in my family either, So it was a very rare disease that that took him. So it's like nothing you really do. So like if someone makes a joke, I'm like, yeah, your dad's dead. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like. I play shows and like, oh, the battery for this is dead. I'm like, just like my dad, it's like, that's hard, like, stuff like that doesn't get me. And then like a dad and his son making amends so he can see his granddaughter. I'm like, that fucking got me, bro. That fucking got me. It's weird the shit that fucking gets me. It's like, that got me, in Big Shot season 2 finale where it's like, who's been affected by Coach Korn and like all his former athletes and other coaches stand up. I'm like, right in the fucking gut, So if you don't have a dead dad and whose dad is present in their life, like when your dad dies, you do not know what's gonna fucking hit you like a ton of bricks when he dies. Anyways, though, the movie ends as happy as can be. That's how the movie ends, as happy as can be. Until the post-credit scene where Nick Fury recruits Kevin for the Avengers. That was weird. I didn't see that coming, but that happened. Anyways, though, I always like to talk about what did we learn from watching the movie Home Alone. That most 8-year-olds could probably survive if you left them home alone. Like, to be honest, I always think about like my friends who have kids, and like 3, 4, like no, we're not leaving the home. But like when they get into the later single digits, like you probably shouldn't leave them home alone. It's probably a good idea, but but it's always curious, like I bet every parent's like, what would happen if I just left them home alone? Like, like my 8-year-old home alone. What would happen? And you wish you could do that without any consequence. You just want to see what would happen. But like, at the same time, you want your kid to be safe, you're not as terrible as Kevin's parent, the McCallisters, not the deli. Just want to make sure about that. It's not the deli. They're terrible people. And Kevin should have lived his life without them in his life.
I like that.
And stuff like that. Like he was right in wishing that. Like his family was fucking terrible. I don't know. Like I don't know. A lot of kids, and you pick up, and you're like and you think Kevin's the worst one. Kevin is clearly not the worst one. If you know about that, I'm telling you right now. Of all those kids, Buzz is the worst one. How is Buzz not like the problem child? Like Buzz, I haven't seen the second one. I might watch the second one. We're not reviewing it this year. Maybe next year we can talk about Home Alone 2. I might save it for next year. But Buzz is destined for prison. I 100% know he's destined for prison. So anyways, though, they're a terrible family. Kevin was right. He knew his family was terrible from the get-go. And they, and you know what? I know in the second one, they forgot about him a second time. So that's just, yeah. And I think the final lesson we learned is sometimes people look creepy, but they're very nice people. And sometimes father and son reunions hit you harder than you expect them to. That's probably a lesson for me, but those are going to hit harder for me than I ever expected in the future. So,
That's rough, buddy.
But that's Celine Dion would say that's the way it is. So,
Come on, Mark. Don't be stingy.
hey there, you just checked out a highlight from Cancel Schweezy. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you learned something and that you are now a smarter individual. Just so you know, we have full episodes and other many highlights available now. Click here for the next best thing that you can go check out as well. And make sure you press that subscribe button and press that notification bell. That way you get updated anytime we make a new post or anytime that we make a new highlight or full episode. So thank you, honk if you love butt drugs, and stay awesome.